Where is Scottie Pippen ranked all time?
No, just what's a top 10? What's a complete?
I got Scottie top 20.
We'll get his top 10, but I want to know where you got Scottie. Where?
Look at big
top
eyes.
20. Top 20.
Top 20.
I thought you said top 10.
And what I said was, and the reason why I say with my list, because everybody has preferences and biases, I tend to elevate guys that have a ton of defensive versatility. And so with Pippen, you can knock him offensively. If maybe he doesn't look like some of the best scorers of all time, but defensively, we have yet to see a player duplicate what Pippen was able to do on the defensive end. Not one player in NBA history can you say could defend like Scottie Pippen. And when you're that good defensively and nobody's matched it, we've seen Kobe kind of mirror what Jordan looked like. We've seen a ton of players mirror certain things, but I've yet to see any player defensively mirror what Scottie Pippen's done. And for me, that adds value. For me, that's value.
Honestly, you don't think nobody's ever mirrored what he's done?
Tell me one player. Tell me one player that's defensively mirrored Scottie Pippen. Kawhi, on ball close, but off ball, he's atrocious. When you go, Draymond Green, you could say, but he's still a tinge below in almost every versatility category. I'm saying, so Kawhi Leonard's not close because off ball, Kawhi Leonard's like a cone. I've done multiple videos showing Kawhi Leonard's off ball defense is not close to Scottie Pippen's. Kawhi on ball, Terry, like guys like Tony Allen on ball, great. But nobody's matched his defensive versatility. He was elite on ball. He was elite off ball. He was elite in transition defensively. How many players in all these defensive categories were elite? You will be hard-pressed to find any. And on top of the fact, he could guard your point guard full court, right? He could come down and control the half-court defense and literally, like Kobe Bryant said, take away a whole half of the court, right? He could do so many different things. He gave Phil Jackson so much flexibility with that defense. We've yet to see that duplicated, and it's not easy to do what he's doing. It's not easy to commit to that side of the ball, right, and not get a ton of praise for those things. He didn't get one defensive player of the year throughout the 90s. That's sad. That's sad. That's one of the worst. That's one of the biggest. Probably that shouldn't. I don't know how that happened for him not to get one defensive player of the year. That's what
Marz is crazy. Go ahead.
What you got, Marz?
If you have Scottie Pippen top 20, does that mean you don't have Hakeem top 20?
No, I have Hakeem in my top 20.
Oh, so they're both in your top 20, but Scottie's just higher.
No, Scotty's not higher. When I said that to Elder, remember when I said that to Elder, y'all, I was playing on his logic. When he said he prioritizes winning, I said, well, if you prioritize winning, then how do you not have Scottie over Hakeem? Because he's 6-0 in the finals. Because remember, he said I prioritize winning in the finals. With Scottie Pippen, top 10 player of the 90s, and he's 6-0 in the finals. If you use that logic, he that shoots him way past Hakeem if you go off that logic. But that just tells you the flaw in the logic. One of the reasons why he changed that logic, because it didn't make sense, because you'll elevate guys over Hakeem that don't necessarily belong. So
do you put defensive ability at a 1-to-1 with offense when you're rating players?
What do you mean 1-to-1?
Because you said Pippen because of you admitted he had some flaws on offense, but because of the things he did defensively, you put him up top 20. So I'm asking you, do you look at defense and offense as a 1-to-1?
No, it's based on how you play defense. Your impact throws that completely off. Scottie Pippen's ability to defend in that era, he didn't have to score 30 points a game to have a complete impact on a game. All he had to do was be great defensively. He can completely blow up your offensive game plan. That is enough right there. That is enough right there. You don't have to go with Jordan on your team. Why would I go out trying to score 30? Right? With shooters or with players like Kukoc on my team. Like, so his impact defensively, his versatility defensively.
But he couldn't do that though.
He could score 30. He could score 30.
He could average 30.
No, not average. He could go out and score 30. He was never asked to do that. He was never asked to go and score 30.
And then to the defensive player of the year. And just so we're clear, I am not a hate Pippen guy. I praise Pippen quite a lot. But I'm curious, what year do you feel like he should have won Depoy?
I think he could have won Defensive Player of the Year in 94. I think he could have won it. I think it was either 92 or 93. I mean, these are the years where I see him. I think the problem with the 90s is that generally there was so much favoritism to the big men that most of the big men that won Defensive Player of the Year outside of Rodman and Gary Payton, all you had to do was come close to leading the league in blocks and you would be there. It was a lot of favoritism for the big man. And so a lot of the defensive players like a Pippen never got the credit they deserve. Fortunately, Gary Payton was able to get it. Not sure how he was able to do that. I'm
looking at his prime years, and it's Dennis Rodman, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Dikembe Mutombo, Gary Payton. Mutombo and I guess Mourning at the tail end of it in a non-big man era. So I'm trying to figure out where
the things that Pippen did, it was hard to tally up on stats, right? Deflections, picking up full court, picking up in a press in 96. There's no stat that keeps track of the things that he did defensively. So he couldn't get rewarded for it. It was easier to reward players like Hakeem because of a ton of blocks. I'm talking about how you average 4 blocks in a game. It's hard for me to say you're not one of the best players. I mean, it's hard. So I think in the 90s, they tend to just look at a lot of stats, and that's how they awarded it.
And perimeter. One last question, Joe. One last question, because we talked about this last week. So I'm curious, because I haven't talked to this. I don't know. I've never talked to this guy before. I don't know who he is. Perimeter or interior defense, which is more difficult in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I would have to say just post defense is more difficult.
Okay.
Post defense is more difficult. But again, I think it also based on your assignment. If I'm given my defensive assignment, if I'm a perimeter player, could be harder than yours in the post. If I'm Pippen and I'm asked to guard a Mark Jackson or some guy out there, and not only guard him, pick him up full court, just blow up the offense. And then once he gets into the half court, then I have to fight through screens. I have to pick up guys like a Reggie Miller and all these other things. So he had like 5 or 6 assignments defensively. And sometimes he had to switch off and guard the post because the Bulls didn't have the greatest post defenders, the Bill Winningtons and all these guys. You're not talking about top-notch elite rim protectors there. So Pippen had to pick up the slack there a lot. So Pippen was asked to do more defensively than a lot of the bigs of the 90s. He was just good at so many things, but there was no running stat to keep track of the things that he did great. So it was harder for people to say he was a great defender because they didn't have in front of their eyes stats that show he led the league in this or he led the league in that. Nobody cared about deflections. Only coaches cared about some of the things that he did. That's
Low. Is Pippen top 30 low?
No, you said you wanted the Pippen slander. Bring your logic. What's so funny?
Is he top 40 low?
Oh, no, Pippen's without a top 50 player. I'm not denying it. And
So
if he's top 30, he's like on the lower end of 30. If I had, I don't. Yeah, closer to like 35 than like 25.
Is Draymond top 50?
No, I don't have Draymond on top 50. No.
Okay, cool.
So to your point, I mean, can't we say the same thing about Hakeem Olajuwon? Because we're talking about an elite rim protector. So what now I do is I completely shut down your interior offense. Anybody that's coming to the rim, anybody that's coming into the paint, anything that's going on, I'm completely shutting that down. Add that to the fact that Hakeem Olajuwon, as a perimeter defender and as a transition defender, being able to guard the rim, being able to get back on defense and guard the rim, he slows down your transition game. Now, I can appreciate Scottie Pippen as a wing defender, because what Scottie Pippen was as a wing defender was he was a guy who threw guys off rhythm. He's a guy who keeps the ball away from a scorer. A great scorer, what he wants to do is when he gets the basketball, he gets himself in rhythm. Scottie's going to keep the ball away from you, and that's how he's going to throw you off rhythm. Now, the same logic goes with Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, Hakeem Olajuwon, he's going to keep you guys out of the paint. I'm going to completely take away that part of your offense. It's basically like a cornerback shutting the field in half. And if I'm shutting the field in half, I completely disable your offense. And Hakeem Olajuwon was able to do that. So to say that nobody duplicated what Scottie Pippen did, I completely think that that's false, because Hakeem Olajuwon had a major impact on defense.
I mean, yeah, like I said, the way you look at defense, if you want to give them that much credit, I mean, that's fine. And again, the 90s with a pace down era where they went to the post a lot, I can see why you would go there. But I just think with the Bulls and the success that they had, the things that they asked that man to do defensively, I mean, imagine telling a player, I want you to pick up full court. I want you to lead the team in the half court defense. I want you to be the vocal leader on the floor and all these things. I'm talking about they asked the man to do a ton defensively, and he was able to do them all, including guard the post from time to time. And you know, I mean, if you want to elevate Olajuwon up there just because of his post defense, outside of the post, I don't know if we can say it was as great is what people give him credit for.
Scottie Pippen was a great transition.
I just don't see the numbers that support that. The numbers that I see don't support.
See, that's the thing right there. Once again, you keep saying the numbers. Once again, you're telling me the numbers, and then you tell me that what Scottie Pippen does don't show up on the stat sheet. On the stat sheet.
No, I'm talking about analytics. I'm talking about analytics.
It's the same logic, because you can't tell me that the
analytics support that Pippen was the best defender of the 90s.
Once again, you can't tell me that Scottie Pippen's numbers don't show up on the stat sheet, but then tell me that Hakeem Olajuwon's numbers,
running numbers is different
those
from
those two things aren't the same thing. So with that being said, Hakeem Olajuwon, from the eye test, which is what you're going off of with Scottie Pippen, the stuff that doesn't show up on the box score. From the eye test, when I watch Hakeem Olajuwon as a transition defender, when Rod Strickland is coming down in transition, and he can't go to the basket because Hakeem Olajuwon is standing under the basket in transition. Or Kai Drexler, he can't go to the basket because Hakeem Olajuwon has come down and slowed your transition game down. Now, in Scottie Pippen's defense, I will tell you this. I did hear Lenny Wilkins say he's the only guy that I've ever seen that can have 5 points and completely dominate the game. Now, I will tell you that. However, when I think about Hakeem Olajuwon, his ability to rebound, his ability to keep your team at one shot, right? At one shot and stifle your offense. All of those things add up. I think Hakeem Olajuwon is the best defensive player in NBA history.
Yeah, I mean,
yo.
I think it goes based on what you favor. If you favor dominance at one portion of the court, if you favor versatility, I can't knock people who say that. If you say Hakeem's the best, I won't fight that because I understand how great he was defensively. And like I said, I just think there's a rank. I think Pippen should be within a certain range. I think Hakeem should be in that same range. So when you're talking about the best defenders, I'm not going to fight people who have him over Pippen. Or I just think if you have a list of top 10 defenders all time, I think Pippen and Hakeem both deserve to be in there. I don't really care where you place them.
I can't name 10 defenders better than Scottie Pippen. I can't.
Yeah,
I won't even try. I won't even try to do that. No.
Yeah, fellas.
What you got? What you got?
I want the discussion to continue going. I see a super chat up here. It says, please cook Elder's top 10. I know FYF has mentioned Elder multiple times. Well, it's funny on the panel and on Player's Choice, you just never know what you're going to get. Be careful what you ask for.
Because what happens? Because what happens?
They will pop up out of nowhere. Elder Rufus.
Elder's in the house. Elder is in the house. What's up, brother?
Before can I say this real quick? I'm sorry, Elder, to cut you. I've been kind of holding back on this. All right. When you're saying they didn't favor, geez, you cut my head off again. When you say they didn't favor guard play or versatility and stuff like that, which I think to the extent you're correct. But would you consider Dennis Rodman falling under the umbrella of like defensive bigs, or he's more in the versatility like Pippen?
I consider Rodman more of a versatile defender. Like people try to put Rodman as this guy that just because you look at that one game where he slowed up Shaq for a half and they say, oh, he's this great. No, he's not a post defender. He was when Rodman at his best defensively, you sent him out there as a wild card to just completely go blow stuff up. Go pick this guy up full court, be a nuisance, blow stuff up, ball hawk, ball stop, hold up cutters, be physical, chuck guys cutting through the lane. That's what you ask Rodman to do. That's Rodman at his prime defensively. You actually diminish him when you just tell him to go defend the post. That's not the best defensive Rodman, right? The Bulls 96 were the best defensive team of all time. Why? Because they picked up full court. They could press. They could do a ton of different things. And they didn't just relegate Rodman to just guarding post players. They actually utilize all his skills.
I would then, I follow that up with, fair enough, there were definitely a lot of bigs who won DPOY, but by your logic, then there would be nothing but big men who leading the DPOY race every year, and that's not the case. Actually, most of the DPOY years followed up from whoever the center was who won it, was Scottie Pippen, was Gary Payton, was Mookie Blaylock, was Dennis Rodman, was other players. And Dennis Rodman, if I'm not mistaken, won 2, and then GP won 1 as well. Mm-hmm. So I understand. And even before that, fair enough, this is the 80s, but Alvin Robinson and then Michael Cooper also won some as well. So I do think there's some validity in what you're saying, that there is a subsection of people probably at that time who were gauging defense based off just counting stats, when that's not the best way to look at defense. I think that's fair. But if you just look throughout the years, even when there's times when a big man does win it, such as 90, 92, right after David Robinson, it was Dennis Rodman right after him, and he nearly beat him out. It was 46 votes to 39 votes. And then right after Dennis Rodman, it was Michael Jordan. And then right after Michael Jordan, it was Scottie Pippen. And then right after Scottie Pippen, it was Joe Dumars. Literally the next four players in the race were all perimeter-oriented players. Then in 96, even though, yes, hold on,
Lo. Don't skip the fact that in 94, Olajuwon won it. Don't leave him out.
No, wait, no. I'm trying to go to every single year. And then in 96, when GP won it, the next person up was Scottie Pippen, and he received more votes than both Dikembe Mutombo, David Robinson, and Hakeem Olajuwon. Then in 97, when Dikembe won it, right after him was Gary Payton, Mookie Blaylock, Scottie Pippen, and Michael Jordan and Joe Dumars. Like literally right after them. And I'm not saying that they didn't favor it, but right after them was a whole bunch of other perimeter-oriented players. And then finally, in 1998, when Dikembe Mutombo won it, Gary Payton was just 2 votes away from winning it himself. And then after that, it was David Robinson Fair. But then right after that, it was Michael and Mookie Blaylock. So winning it, sure, maybe so. But to say that they didn't really value it at all when the rest of the players who were receiving DPOY votes were nothing but perimeter-oriented players for majority of the 90s, I don't really see.
But again, coming close don't count. That's the thing. Nobody's going to remember Scottie for coming close in the Defensive Player of the Year race. I mean, people remember Gary Payton. One of the things, he's the first guard to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's always going to stand out. Nobody, when you know, in that era we're talking about that big man era. I know there was another guard that won it, but very few guards have actually won it.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Sidney Moncrief
just so you know, in the 82-83 season, right? So in the 82-83 season,
are you saying more guards have won Defensive Player of the Year than bigs?
Once again, so in the 82-83 season,
it's not a very balanced list.
That's when the Defensive Player of the Year was implemented. That was the first year. So from 1982 to 1990, 4 of the 8 Defensive Players of the Year were 2 guards. That was Sidney Moncrief, Alvin Robinson, Michael Cooper, and Michael Jordan. So that's 4 guys in that decade. Right, so it was even though it was in the 80s. It was since it was implemented.
I can say right now from 1983 when it was implemented.
The first 7 years that it was awarded,
4 guys.
It was not a center.
Yeah, it was up until
4 times 2 guards won it. 4 times
up until 98. It's Moncrief twice, Alvin Robinson, Cooper, Jordan, Dennis Rodman, like you said, is a perimeter-oriented player, and then GP. It's eight players won it in the first.
If we're primarily talking about the 90s, though, which is a big man dominant era, it doesn't surprise me that they favored big men in the Defensive Player of the Year award race. That's what it.
Oh no,
that's what I'm referring to. If you go outside of the 90s,
you can't say that for outside of the 90s. Though you can't say that for the whole race because like I just said, if it's one player winning it, fair enough. But if it's close between him and GP, then that would mean that at that time they still would have valued GP to a similar degree. And I get what you're saying that people are not going to remember it, but we're not talking about people who don't remember. We're talking about people who study the game of basketball and who know it.
But one of the reasons why Scottie Pippen gets diminished is because he doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award.
Well, wait a minute.
Let's not focus our energy on people who don't know basketball.
Even if
Scottie Pippen is great, it don't matter if he didn't win it.
Even people who know basketball diminish him.
But even Lauren, I'm gonna let you finish. But even if that's true, right? Let's say for the sake of argument that because he wasn't winning it diminishes it. Who he was coming in second place to?
That's what I'm saying.
Doesn't that elevate how great of a defensive player those guys were?
Because we all acknowledge that Tim Duncan is one of the greatest defensive players of all time as well, and he didn't win one
ever, and he made the All-League defensive team 15 times.
So I don't like. I mean, the people you probably are talking about are just people who trying to diminish Scottie and don't do it legitimately. Yes. What I'm about to do ain't going to be applicable to that. But Scottie is as great as he was, and he was a phenomenal player. I don't know where y'all may have him at, but this idea that like Scottie was this top 20 player or top 15 or wherever you may have him, when there's players who had the responsibility to impact their team's success from an individual standpoint and lead that charge. Scottie Pippen, yes, got that responsibility in 94, and I think he did a great job. 95 happened, the 95 season happened, and he was failing to do so before Michael Jordan got there because they were barely above 500. For as great as defensively he was an amazing defender. Yet in 98, when he missed half of the season, essentially, they were still on pace to win 55 to 60 plus games. They were still one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Not knocking Scottie, I'm not saying that, but the reality is that it wasn't as if like the Bulls defense was contingent on Scottie Pippen's excellence, because even in 98, when he was not the same player, they were still an amazing defensive team, and they went through the postseason with him having a bad back, especially in the finals, and they were still great defensively. So Scottie Pippen was I'm not saying he was a cherry on top as well. He definitely put them in conversations as all-time great, but his defense isn't so great that it should propel him over players who had the responsibility to lead teams for 10 plus years. That is absurd.